A proportion is going to state that two ratios are equal to each other. So you've probably seen proportions a long time in your math career, probably starting back in middle school, maybe even earlier. And one of the easiest ways, the quickest ways to solve a proportion is to use cross multiplication. Now it's not the only way to solve a proportion. We'll take a look at some other ways to solve that in other videos, but it's the way that people seem to prefer to use. So let's take a look at how proportions, or how cross multiplication can be used to solve a couple of proportions. And this first one's kind of your typical easy proportion problem, but you'll see in the next examples things get a little bit different. So cross multiplication works just like that, multiplying diagonally. 10 times x is 10x. When I cross multiply the other way, 5 times 16 gets me 80. Now the biggest mistake I see people make is they cross multiply and they write 10x over 80. The whole idea of cross multiplying is you don't have a fraction once you've cross multiplied. So there's my equation, and it doesn't matter which way you cross multiply first. Dividing both sides by 10 gets me a final answer of 8 for the x value. So there's kind of an easy one. You've been doing those hopefully for years and years and years. Take a look at these next examples. You'll see that not only do they have multiple variables in them, y appears twice, but one piece of our ratio has actually got two terms in this case y plus 1. So watch how this will be a little bit different than what we just did, although we're still going to stick with cross multiplication. So let's do the easy way first. 3y times 1 is just 3y when I multiply that way. When I multiply the other way, I've got to make sure I do 2 times that entire part, y plus 1. In other words, if I rewrite this using parentheses, I need to make sure I do 2 times y plus 1 in parentheses. Oops, sorry about that. Which, if I write it like that, hopefully you're thinking, oh, it's just distributive property. That's absolutely what I'm going to need to do for these problems. So multiplying this gets me 2y plus 2. Just make sure you distribute. And so I have a slightly more complicated equation to solve, but shouldn't be too bad. Subtracting 2y from both sides will get me a single y on this side, equal to 2. Okay, what you cannot do with these is what some people do on the first problems, the easy ones. They know to cross multiply and then divide by that odd number out. That is definitely not going to work for these that have more complicated pieces in them. So don't do that cross multiply and divide trick. But yes, cross multiplication works just fine. Alright, I'll show you one more example like that in case you need to see it again, although this would be a great time to pause the video and try this one yourself. I'm going to cross multiply this way first. Doesn't matter what you cross multiply first. 7 times z is just 7z. And when I cross multiply the other way, remember I need to do 14 times that entire piece, z minus 3. So in other words, I have to remember to distribute. So doing that gets me 14z minus 42 as the equation I want to solve. And now, even though it will result in a negative, I'm going to subtract 14z from both sides, just because I want to get these numbers away from my constant. So I have negative 7z equal to negative 42. And when I divide both sides by negative 7, I get a final answer of positive 6 for z. Alright, and let me show you just one more, again, a slightly different example down here at the bottom. So in this case, multiplying this way, 5 times 20, no big deal there, that's just 100. But when I cross multiply the other way, I get x times x. X times x is not 2x, x times x is x squared. And so what I need to do is now take the square root of both sides. And even though this is more of an Algebra 2 topic, I want to mention it right now. When you're solving an equation using square roots, there'll be two answers that we get. Of course, 10 is going to be a solution. The square root of 100 is 10. However, a negative 10 is also going to work. So even though, like I said, this is more of an Algebra 2 topic, I do want you to get in the habit of giving me two answers for a proportion like this. Both positive 10 and negative 10 would work as solutions. Just to show you, let's say we plugged in negative 10 for x. So this first fraction is 5 divided by negative 10, which would simplify just to negative 1/2. The second fraction, again, plugging in negative 10 for x, is negative 10 over 20, which also simplifies to negative 1/2. So that just goes to show you that there are two answers. Positive 10 and negative 10 would both work as solutions to this proportion.